Hello guys and welcome to my new video. It finally released date, the new set is out and I have more decks to start your journey in Whispers in the Well. But before you do, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to never miss a new video. And now, have fun, let's go! Amber Steel Aggro was one of the most played and best decks in the last set, and why change something good when it's still, good. So the shell of the deck or the core of the deck is pretty much the same as in set 9. I only changed 2 cards. I added 4 copies of the new super rare Mowgli. He's a 2-drop inkable character, 1 strength, 2 health, quest for 1, and when you play him your opponent reveals his hand and then he discards a non-character card of his choice. And I also added 2 copies of the new Raja Bodyguard. He's a 3-drop inkable character, 3 strength, 4 health, quest for 1, and as I said, he's a bodyguard and we finally have a bodyguard fighting back, which is not Pluto. I really like Raja so far because you can drop him in turn 3 and the rest is pretty much the same and standard Amber Steel Aggro with the classic Aurora Tiana opening, followed up by some Lady and Nala shenanigans. And as a removal, I still have 4 copies of Strength of a Raging Fire and 2 copies of Fighter Cannons because sometimes we need to remove a shift target like the new Webby. Clarabelle is still a threat. Yeah, other than that, I think even though there are more answers to Tiana right now or with the new set, I think still Amber Steel Aggro Tiana is a good choice to start off your journey into Whispers in the Well. You will find all the deck lists in the video description below and we go on to the next deck I've prepared for you today. Blurple is back and it will be a top contender for the best deck in the format, also in set 10. I tried to build a very consistent and solid list going into week number 1 from set 10. Looking at the list, I started with 8 1-drop characters, but you can cut to Rafikis if you want. But I aiming for some consistency and having like those low-cost characters available if you need them. As a ramp, of course, we have Tipu and Sail the Azurite Sea. Then nothing really has changed. We have Dumbo, we have Genie, Yago, Belle, and Elsa, of course. And then there are some new additions to the Blurple list. I added 3 copies of the new Whisper Ursula. It's a 5-cost inkable character. She quests for 2. She has boost 1, and when there's a card under her, she gets evasive and +1 lore. So she is actually a good threat to close out the game. You can boost her relatively cheap compared to other boost characters, and I really like the evasive here as well because then she isn't targetable by every character and very hard to take out. And I also added 3 copies of the new legendary Demona. She's a 6-cost inkable character, 5 strength, 6 health, quests for 2. When you play her, you exert all opposing characters and each player, so your opponent and yourself. If you have 3 cards, if you have less than 3 cards in hand, you draw up to 3 cards. So it's risky sometimes against certain decks. I'd not play Demona because you don't want to give your opponent hand cards back, but it's also good for you to refresh your hand cards. And if you already built up a board ready to challenge, you can drop Demona, exert all opposing characters and gain past ward, for example. So like a Small Prince Philip or so, a Webby Thunderquack is targetable with Demona. And then you can start challenging and tearing apart the opposing board. And as a new card draw option or like engine besides Dumbo and all the evasive characters, I added Tamatoa back into Blurple with the new 2-drop item, Woodchuck's Diary. It's back in the mix for our main card draw engine. You can drop the book, banish it, and then with Tamatoa you can start gaining it back from a discard, and when Tamatoa quests you can play it for free, draw more cards. Other than that, I added 3 copies of TikTok in my week 1 Blurple list because I think Purple Steel will be one of the best decks or one of the most played decks at least. So TikTok is really hard to take out for those Purple Steel decks and that's why he's in my Blurple list. Of course, Hades is back in the mix and 4 copies of Into the Unknown for some more spot removal. I think Blurple will be one of the decks to beat in the new format. If you like the list, look at the video description, there you'll find a link and we go to the next deck. I have for you for set 10 week 1 decks. So the next deck I want to showcase is a red-green action and song deck surrounding like Max Goof, Powerline and Maui Shark. The core is pretty much like, I faced it in a couple set championships, this deck. The core is pretty much the same from set 9. I only added one new card, Malicious, Mean and Scary is in the mix of course, and 2 copies of the 9-cost Prince Philip. Since we are facing a lot of blue decks, I think getting up to 9 ink isn't a problem, and if you don't need him, you can ink him anyway. But this deck is built to fight against aggro decks, because an early Under the Sea is probably devastating with Powerline and Max Goof on board as Singer 4, Singer 5. And then you have so many synergies with Maui Shark. We have 18 songs and actions in this deck, so it's really powerful and you can pay off a lot of Maui Shark. And we have Max Goof, the legendary one, playing a 4-cost song from your discard for free. We have Powerline in the deck, and as a main card draw engine, of course, there is Clarabelle, and to help her a little bit, there is Donald Gentleman drawing you a card at the beginning of your turn. And if you need some spot removal, we have You're Welcome, we have Mother Knows Best to send the character back to hand. Overall, I had a lot of fun testing this deck. You're probably asking yourself, when do you test all those decks? Yeah, at night when I should sleep. I grind a lot online, test all my deck ideas. At least a couple games are in with all the decks you find in this video. I really enjoyed playing red-green action. Maybe a deck I will chase in set 10 because it's a lot of fun. To be honest, if you want to copy it, you'll find a link in the video description below. And we have a look at the next deck. Blue Steel is a deck I'm really interested in set 10 because this deck is fire. You just ramp up so quickly up to 6 or 7 ink, and then you just drop your big boys and big bodies on board, one bomb after another, making pressure on your opponent. What did I add to this list from set 9? I added Lexington into the mix. He's a 3-cost inkable character, 4 strength, 4 health, and he has alert, so he can target evasive characters. Of course, for some ramp options, we have Pleakley and we have the new legendary Cinderella in the mix. 4-cost uninkable character, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1. And at the end of your turn, if you play the princess in this turn, you can put a card from your hand into your inkwell and draw another card. And we have quite a few princesses in this deck. We have Jasmine, we have Namari, and Cinderella herself is a princess as well. And yeah, if you play her, you can ramp up to 6 the next turn, which is pretty huge. And then you can start dropping either Goliath or Tinkerbell. And Goliath is huge. He's a 6-cost inkable character, 6 strength, 5 willpower, quests for 2. And at the end of each player's turn, if you have more than 2 cards in hand, you have to discard, so you have only 2 cards left in hand. And if you have less than 2 cards, you draw up, so you have 2 cards in hand. So this is your main draw engine, to be honest. And it's fire, because you never have no hand cards, because you can drop a Goliath, draw back 2 cards, and that you can do every turn. And then we have Hades, we have Vincenzo Santorini for some spot removal, some damage, and he's a big body with 2 strength, 8 willpower, quest for 3. And I added 2 copies of the new Headless Horseman, 8-cost inkable character, 5 strength, 7 willpower, he quests for 2, and his ability is fun. When you play this character, each player draw 3 cards, then this cards 3 cards at random, so you can roll a dice or just let your opponent pick randomly, and then choose an opposing character and deal 2 damage for each action discarded this way. In testing it was kind of fun. Sometimes he missed, but sometimes he did like 10 damage to a 1-drop character, or I don't know. But it's fun. I like this gamble aspect of this card, and in testing it was really cool because he's a huge body as well. 5 strength, 7 willpower is not that easy to remove, and he also quests for 2. And if you don't need him, if you don't want to play him, you can ink him. So this is totally fine. As removal options, of course, I run 4 copies of Strength of a Raging Fire, and I added 3 copies of the new Timu Zeus song, 4-cost uninkable song. Deal 4 damage to chosen character, and your deity characters gain Challenger +2, and there is Hades in the deck. He can profit from the second ability of Timosus, and I really like the card because we need some more damage output and to disrupt your opponent draws or like perfect hands. We have 3 copies of Beyond the Horizon in the mix. Also, if you want to refresh your hand, you can use it on yourself, or you just discard your opponent's hand and he has to draw 3 new cards. I really like the deck. The deck is just fire. It's strong. You ramp up so quickly and then you just draw big characters. They all are so strong, and it's very hard to beat this deck actually. And I think it will be one of the top 3 decks in the new format. If you want to copy it, you will find it in the video description below. And if you want to dive deeper into Blue Steel, you should check out Holland Sweet's YouTube channel. He recently released a short guide on Blue Steel in set 10. I will link his YouTube channel in the video description below as well. And we go to the last 2 decks for today. So Green Steel is not my favorite deck, but I really like this mid-range approach to Green Steel. We don't have any discard in this deck, but this deck still is fire. And what I like about it is because there is my favorite card of the set in this deck, Webby Thunderquack, the legendary one. It's so good on the draw against blue decks, against every other deck, because when she quests, if your opponent has more ink in his inkwell, you can put the top card of your inkwell into your inkwell. So you ramp up with your opponent and you can gain access to your bigger characters more quickly. What else did I add to this Green Steel mid-range build? I added Heron, Black Heron. She's a 2-cost inkable character, 3/3 body, and I really like her in the 2-drop slot because she can trade up against almost every 1-drop character or 2-drop character in the game right now. And she's a solid body. Main card draw engine of course is stock, but we also have Clarabella Shiftline available with 2 1-drops and 4 3-drop Clarabellas to have viable shift targets. And there is the Max Goof Shiftline as well. With the small Max Goof you can retrieve an action from your discard, and with the shift or the Floodborn Max Goof you can play a song from your discard for free and then put it under the deck, which is really strong because we run only 3-drop or 4-drop songs, so you can play every song from your discard with the big Max Goof. And I think in this Green Steel build, Pete Referee is a must-have, so you can block actions from your opponent like Malicious, Mean and Scary, to not get wiped out by Prince Philip or other removal songs. And I added 4 copies of Gogo Tomago into this deck because there are so many huge bodies, and if they trade into your characters, they leave quite a bit of damage on themselves, and then you can just play Gogo and win the game on the spot. Overall, I really like the consistency of this deck. We have Ursula for some discard and a 1-drop Captain Hook for some challenging power. If you like this approach to Green Steel mid-range, you will find a link in the video description below. There's one more deck left, and in testing it was the most fun I played, so let's have a look at the last deck for today. Red Purple back into the meta discussion. I don't know, but I really like this list, and for 2 years now I've never sleeved up a Red Purple list, but I'm tempted to do this set because I really like the look of this list and the potential this deck has. So let's talk about some cards I added to my set 10 Red Purple list. Starting off with the 1-drop Tinkerbell. She has 3 strength, 1 health quest for 1, which is pretty good for a 1-cost character because she can trade up against stronger characters. And of course, the new Diablo is in this deck. 2-cost uninkable character, 3 strength, 3 health, and he quests for 2. So he's a solid 2-quester with a solid body as well. Of course, there's Lumiere boosting up all your characters, and for some evasive power, starting with a Violet Saberwing, 2-cost inkable character, 3 strength, 1 health, quests for 1, and she has evasive. So you see there is Dumbo in the list, so we need some evasive characters, also some cheap evasive characters to have a good Dumbo payoff. And for some challenging power, I added 3 copies of the new Bronx. He's a gargoyle and he has 6 strength, 4 health body, and he has reckless, so he has to challenge every turn, but he can take down almost every character in the game right now. And he has the downside of all the Gargos. If you have 3 cards or more in hand, he doesn't ready at the start of your turn. But that doesn't matter, because usually Bronx in testing was a 2-for-1, taking out 1 character, and then your opponent has to trade into him again. So he's taking down 2 characters, which is pretty strong. I also added 3 copies of Hermes. He's a 3/3 body, quest for 1, and he has Rush. He's like not the Fox we know, but the 3 strength, 3 health is pretty good to use Rush. And with Lumiere in the mix, you can boost him up to 4 strength, and then he can do really nasty stuff in turn 3. And I also added 4 copies of Cheshire Cat. Cheshire Cat is the new Bell, at least it's a cheaper Bell with a rather weaker body with only 3 strength, 4 health, quest for 1, and he has boost 2, so if you put a card under him, you can move 2 damage from 1 character to 1 opposing character, and you can do it every turn if Cheshire Cat lives. So this is pretty strong actually, and you also have some big characters. They can hold a lot of damage, and then you can move it with Cheshire Cat. Of course, there's Dumbo and the whole evasive package with Genie, Iago, and the 5-cost Elsa. And top end cards are the Headless Horseman, the new legendary Ruby one, 5-cost uninkable character, 4 strength, 2 health, quests for 2. When you play him, you can banish chosen opposing character with 2 strength or less, so it's like a baby big Sisu. And during your turn, whenever an opposing character is banished, each of your characters gets +1 strength, so you can boost up all your characters with only entering the game from Headless Horseman. And every turn you can like do it again, banish a character and boost up your characters with the Headless Horseman's second ability. And you have some removal with him, because removal is what we need in Ruby Amethyst. And as a last card, as a last character card, we have Demona in the mix, 6-cost inkable character, 5 strength, 6 health, quest for 2, and I already talked about her in Blurple. When you play her, you can exert all characters, so you have to build up a good and huge board. Then you drop Demona, exert all opposing characters, you can gain past ward and stuff, and then you can start challenging into all the characters your opponent has now available for challenging and tear apart the enemy board. And for some more card draw, I added 4 copies of the new item, 2-cost inkable Junior Woodchuck's Guidebook. If you pay 1 ink, banish the item, you can draw 2 cards, which is pretty strong. If you don't have Dumbo available, I think the book is really good for some additional card draw. And yeah, I really love this list, and among all those stacks you saw in the video today, this stack was the most fun I had in testing, and might sleeve up red purple for the first time ever in my Lorcana history. If you like the look of this list, of course you will find a link in the video description below. And if you've been asking yourself, where do I get those cool looking deck profile pictures? I've been using Naurcana app, a new deck building site I recently stumbled over. I've been in contact with the creator of the site, and if you like the look of these deck profiles, I will link the site in the video description below, also with the password for site access. But there's more to explore. There's a mulligan trainer, there's some deck comparisons, a probability calculator, and much more to come. So if you want to check it out, I would be very happy if you follow the link to the new deck building site. Naurcana app is the name, and yeah, big shout out to the creator, Drawn to Life. I found him via Discord, I've been in touch with him, and he's working relentlessly on the site to optimize it for your Lorcana deck building experience. So that's it for today. I hope you like the look of the deck list I prepared for week 1 into the new set in Whispers in the Well. If you want to support my channel a little bit more, I recently unlocked channel membership. So if you like my videos, want to support me, I'm happy to have you as a channel member. There are some perks to unlock, like icons, stickers, and more to come in the near future. If you're new to the channel, I'm also happy about new subscribers, so click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Flocky.